Hello guys, how are we all doing? Welcome back to yet another video. Now today is a big one. We are ranking all of the 72 EFL clubs for the 21-22 season on their fan bases, home and away. Let's get into this. Just before we get started guys, if you are new around here, please make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and let's break down how this is going to work. So at the bottom you can see we've got all 72 of the EFL clubs for this season in no particular order, and we've got 6 categories to put them into: elite, great, solid fans, underrated fans, meh, and poor fans. So obviously the best fans go in elite and the worst fans go in poor. Let's get started with the first team here then, which is Forest Green Rovers from League 2. And don't get me wrong, they're not a bad club, but in terms of their fans, I'm sorry, Forest Green, I'm going to get the ball rolling with you in Port. Now, don't get me wrong, like I say, they're a decent club and they could be going places this season. Would be interesting to see Forest Green get to League 1. But I'm sorry, Forest Green, when you came to Coventry a couple of years ago in League 2, you only brought about 50 away fans. It wasn't a great effort. Fair play to the ones that came, but no, not good enough for me. Next up, Blackpool FC. They're really good, to be honest. They've been doing really well in the Championship and the fans have been brilliant at home and on the road. It's a tricky one because there's some big clubs in there, but do you know what? Let's put Blackpool FC straight up in the great category. I think they've been making lots of noise and their fans have been taking good numbers at home and on the road. Next up are Burton Albion of League 1. I've seen their fans come to Coventry before. I've been to their ground, the Pirelli, before. They're not the worst. I'm not going to put them in poor, but if you're looking at this in the grand scheme of things, you've got 72 clubs here. How do Burton Albion compare to most of them? I'm going to put them in meh. If there's any Burton fans watching, what do you think of that? Next up are Millwall Football Club, and I've seen them come to Coventry before, and I've been to the Den the first time this season, and they're not bad, but I think they were built up to be something a bit more than they weren't. I know they've caused trouble before when they've come to Coventry. They were like destroying buses and pubs and things like that. And to be honest though, with Millwall, I think they get this massive reputation, and when you go and see them, they're not quite as it's built up to be. Maybe for the big occasions when they play a big team or a local rival, it's more fierce. Next up are Bristol Rovers, obviously from League 2, and you know what? They have some very good fans. Going away to their stadium, it's a very unusual stadium. It's not like most stadiums you get in the Football League because there's so many different bits to it, but they made a good atmosphere. And every time they've come to Coventry as well, they've actually brought thousands and thousands. Bristol Rovers are really good. Do you know what? I think a lot of people don't realise how good they are. And especially for a League 2 team, they've got very good fans. I'm going to put Bristol Rovers straight in the great tier. I think Bristol Rovers fans are great. Next up, you've got Cambridge United. I've only seen their fans once. It was a Tuesday night when they came to Coventry, so maybe that's not the best time to judge them. I think at home they actually get decent numbers. Because I'm yet to go away to their ground and see them, I'm going to put Cambridge United in underrated. I'm not 100% sure. If there's any Cambridge fans watching, where would you put yourselves? Next up are Sheffield Wednesday, and for me, Sheffield Wednesday have to go in elite. Whether they're in the Championship or League 1, Sheffield Wednesday are a big club and they've got great fans at home and on the road. Hillsborough's a great stadium. It's a massive stadium. Obviously, the tickets can be quite expensive, but they get good numbers in there. And on the road, Sheffield Wednesday are sensational. The numbers they take, the noise they can make, I think Sheffield Wednesday have to go in elite. Next up are Cheltenham Town. Obviously, they've just come up from League 2 to League 1. I've seen them come to Coventry and I've been away to their ground. I'm sorry, Cheltenham. I'm going to put you in meh. I don't think you're the worst, but I'm going to go for meh. Any Cheltenham fans watching, what do you think of that? Next up are Bristol City. They obviously brought quite a few thousand when they came to Coventry a couple of weeks ago, and they can make good noise. I think every time they scored or when the game was quite exciting, they got behind their team. They were singing some songs. They've been away to Ashton Gate, but that was before it got redeveloped, so I'm looking forward to going away there now it's been redeveloped. Bristol City. It's between solid and great for me. I might just sneak them into great. I do think Bristol City can make good noise and they do bring good numbers, so yeah, Bristol City have to go in great for me. Next up are Colchester United, and I remember Colchester United was one of the first sort of set of away fans I laughed at as a kid, because I remember one of my first seasons as a Coventry fan was the 2012-13 season, and it was our first season in League 1, and quite a few teams were bringing thousands and thousands or high hundreds, and I remember Colchester, they only brought like 200 that season. I think it was a Tuesday night again, but yeah, Colchester, whenever they've come to Coventry, haven't brought great numbers. Based on what I've seen of them, I'm sorry Colchester fans, I'm going to put you in meh. Next up are Crewe Alexandra, and this is an interesting one because Crewe for League 1 are probably middle of the range in terms of fan bases. They can bring a few numbers on the road. It's a tricky one. I've been away to their ground, I thought it was alright. I'm going to put Crewe in underrated. I think some clubs, some people might not realise that Crewe actually have a decent sort of fan base. They do always get a good number of fans at home and on the road. They can make a bit of noise. So yeah, let's put Crewe in underrated. Next up are Exeter City, and I'm going to put Exeter City in underrated. You think of the journey these guys travel. Devon, there's not many local grounds to Devon. Obviously, Exeter and Plymouth, even them as rivals, aren't that close to each other. I think it's about an hour's drive between them two. So yeah, Exeter City, every away day for them is a mission, and they'll always take some decent numbers on the road. At home, I think they can make some good noise as well. So Exeter City in League Two are underrated. Next up are Gillingham Football Club. It's a tricky one. To be honest, I haven't been to their stadium. That's a ground I want to tick off, but we're no longer in the same league as them, so I don't know when I'll get round to doing that. Whenever they've come to Coventry, I don't think they've brought great numbers. I think I've mentioned that before. So judging it off that, I might have to put Gillingham in meh, but I want to go to their ground to then judge their home fans. Any Gillingham fans watching, let me know what you'd think of that. Next up are Fleetwood Town, and this is a very tricky one. It depends which way you want to look at this. If you think about the core supporters, the ones that go week in, week out and try and make as much noise as they can, then you say they're fantastic. But if you put numbers into the equation, then Fleetwood Town are right down the bottom. I think you've got to take into account Fleetwood Town. Fleetwood's not a massive place. It's a very small town. The population can't be that big. I think they can get decent numbers at home, but whenever they come on the road, it's never great numbers. So I'm sorry to the Fleetwood fans. I'm going to put you in poor based on the numbers. Next up are Hull City. It's a tricky one with Hull City. I've never seen them come to Coventry. I've never been to a Coventry game at home. I did actually get to go to the KC or the KCOM, whatever you want to call it, this season, and obviously they were in poor form then, but they still had okay numbers, and there was a sort of section of the Hull City fans that were trying to make some noise. It's a tricky one. To be honest, what you've got to take into account with Hull City is the stuff they've been through with the owners, and they've always had some good fans staying by them. They've always had some numbers still turning up. So for that reason, I'm going to just bump Hull into solid. Next up are Ipswich Town, obviously in League One. I look at Ipswich Town. I've always associated them with being in the Championship. I know they were in the Premier League a few years ago as well, but for me, they spent a long time in the Championship, and now they're in League One. I just think they're too big for League One, but there's a lot of big clubs in League One. As a fan base, Portman Road's a great ground. They always get good numbers there. On the road, not bad as well for League One. They're definitely one of the top 5, top 6 clubs in League One for fan bases. I'm going to put Ipswich Town in solid. Next up, you come to Sunderland, and they're just mental, aren't they, Sunderland? How are they still in League One? They're going to have to go in elite. Love or hate Sunderland, you have to admit the numbers are tremendous. I've heard some people try and say Sunderland don't make much noise. To be honest, whenever I've seen them, I thought they've always made good noise. They've obviously come to Coventry before. I've seen them when they've come to St Andrews, when Coventry were playing in Birmingham. Big numbers, big noise at times. I've been to their ground as well, the Stadium of Light, a couple of times. It's just massive. It just goes to show the potential at Sunderland. How are they in League One? It's a really weird one. Next up are Mansfield Town, and I'm going to slide Mansfield Town in underrated. Before we went down to League Two, Coventry this is, I didn't know a lot about Mansfield Town, and when we went up against them, I thought their fans were actually pretty good. When they came to Coventry, they made a bit of noise, and when we went away to their ground, it felt like a playoff game. There was a really sort of toxic atmosphere, but I like that kind of thing. It makes the game more interesting. It gives it like an extra edge. You're more nervous. You're more excited. Mansfield are massively underrated. Next up are Oxford United. I've seen them come to Coventry a few times. Not a bad fan base, but it's not massively far away. I've seen them obviously at Wembley when we played them at Wembley in the Checker Trade Trophy final, as it was called then. They took about 30,000 or so. Yeah, they're pretty good, Oxford United. For a League One club, you've got to say, are we going solid? I'm going to be generous. I'm going to slide Oxford United into solid. What do you think of that? Next up are Peterborough United. This is a tricky one with Peterborough United. To be honest, when they came up to the Championship, I thought, as a club, they're not particularly massive. I didn't think the fan base was that big. I thought, they're going to struggle in the Championship. But they make a good atmosphere at home. Maybe you'd expect that with their ground not being that big. They can sell out as much as they can. But on the road, I was pleasantly surprised by how many they brought to Coventry on a Friday night this season. So I'm going to put Peterborough United in underrated. Let me know what you think of that. Next up, you've got Plymouth Argyle. Oof, this is a tricky one. For me, they have to go in elite or great. Oh, gosh. It's between these two, isn't it? Because the reason is they've got fantastic fans. They are one of the furthest places from anywhere else. Every away day for them is a mission, and they always take good numbers. For that reason, I'm going to bump Plymouth Argyle into elite, just taking into account the journey their fans go on. And there's always at least a few hundred, if not thousands, that they take. It's a very well supported club. I think Plymouth are a nice club. I like their ground, actually. Yeah, Plymouth have to go in elite, just because if you take everything into account, they're really good fans, aren't they? Next up, our Portsmouth Football Club. Wow, this is interesting. I'm going to also bump Portsmouth into elite, just as you can see, I've got a few League One clubs in elite for now, but Portsmouth, they're a big club, especially for League One level. I remember when they went down to League Two, they always get good numbers at Fratton Park, don't they? And the numbers they'll take away are always sensational. Once again, you've got to take into account their South Coast, so when they go to a Northern away day, it's a bit of a mission for their fans as well. So Portsmouth Football Club, they have some very good fans. Next up, we go to Vale Park as we find Port Vale, and I don't know about your guys' experiences, but whenever I've been to Port Vale, there's always been a pretty decent atmosphere. I'm not saying that they sell the ground out, but the fans that do go, there's like a corner of Port Vale fans that always sing, always try to make it an intimidating atmosphere. And I like that, to be honest. When you think they're a League Two club, they're really doing all right, to be fair, as a fan base. On the road as well, they've come to Coventry. They've always brought at least 1,000. I'm going to put Port Vale in solid. Let me know what you think of that. Next up, you go to Scunthorpe United. I'm sorry, Scunthorpe, not particularly memorable in my opinion. Whenever you've come to Coventry, hasn't been amazing numbers. Whenever I've been to Glanford Park, which I think was only once, wasn't amazing. Sorry, Scunthorpe, I'm going to slide you in meh. Next up are Swindon Town. Tricky one. They're obviously in League Two. Not a bad fan base, to be honest, for League Two. Whenever I've been to Swindon away, it's always been a decent atmosphere. It's not a bad ground as well. I'm going to put Swindon Town in underrated. It wasn't until Coventry went down to League One and League Two that I started appreciating some of the fan bases at that level. And yeah, for League Two, Swindon Town have some very decent fans, don't they? Next up are Tranmere Rovers. I'm going to put them in solid. I think Tranmere Rovers always take decent enough numbers, and whenever I've been to their ground as well, it's not a bad away day. I think Tranmere are actually quite a solid fan base for League Two as well. Next up are Cardiff City. Only seen them once or twice, and that's when they've come to Coventry. Like I've said before, I'm looking forward to going away to Cardiff on Boxing Day this year. Cardiff, I'm going to put you in solid. Maybe on Boxing Day I'll change my mind and put them into great or something. But for now, what I've seen of Cardiff, you've got to take into account it's not a local place to many away days. So yeah, not bad. I think they brought 1,000 or so to Coventry on a Tuesday night. So yeah, solid for me. Next up are Wigan Athletic. Don't know with Wigan. Only seen them once when they've come to Coventry. It's another ground I want to tick off. I've never been to the DW. When I've seen pictures of it, they don't sell it out, but they can probably make some decent noise at times. I need to make my own opinion of that, I suppose. It's a tricky one. I'll put Wigan in underrated just because I need to form my own opinion of the DW. Like I say, when they've come to Coventry, I think they brought 1,000 or 2,000, something like that. I think it was the opening day. It wasn't bad, actually. I'll put Wigan in underrated. Next up, a Barnsley Football Club. This is tricky. In League One, one of the better fan bases. In the Championship, not one of the better fan bases, if you get what I mean. They've always had good numbers at Oakwell, even in League One. When it comes to an away day, I don't think they bring that many to Coventry. They maybe do to other grounds, I'm not sure. Let's put Barnsley in. I'm going to be nice. I'm going to just slide them into solid. Next up, you've got Birmingham City. I've said before, Birmingham City, their fans are elite. Whenever I've been to St Andrews, it's been a pretty decent atmosphere. I'm not saying that they always sell it out, but they always get at least 20,000 or whatever, whenever I've been anyway. And yeah, a good noise at St Andrews. And on the road, their fans are a class above. When they came to Coventry this season, they brought thousands. Didn't make that much noise, but I think that's due to the game being a 0-0 draw. I don't even think we made that much noise. When it's a boring game, I can understand the atmosphere not being as good, but yeah, Birmingham City on the road, they've got a good reputation. I think their fans are passionate and loud, and that's why they're going in elite. Next up, Blackburn Rovers. This is an interesting one because I got to go to Ewood Park this season and I wasn't massively impressed. I think the attendance was like 10,000. They had a few fans trying to sing, but at least half of the stadium was empty. Obviously, I'll make an opinion of their away fans when they come to Coventry this season. This is tricky. What do we do with Blackburn Rovers? We'll slide them into solid. Next up, Walsall Football Club. It's an interesting one, this, because Walsall's not far from Coventry. So whenever I've been to their ground or whenever they've come to us, there's been decent enough numbers because it's kind of like a rivalry in League One and League Two. But I don't know what they're like when they go on a long journey, if their away fans are loyal, if they take good numbers. They're not bad though, Walsall. I'll put them in underrated. Not bad for League Two level in my opinion. Next up are the mighty Sky Blues of Coventry City. And I know you guys are going to say biased, but hear me out. I'm going to put us in elite. One thing I've got to take into account is we're basing it on this season, and Coventry City this season have been fantastic in the Championship, and that does definitely help with the crowds. We're averaging at least 20,000 at home, which is very good. Even in the Championship, that's in your sort of top 5, top 6 home attendances. On the road, we're always taking a minimum of about 2,000 or so, depending on what the away allocation is. We always make good noise, even when there's a small allocation of away fans. We always try and make as much noise as possible. Coventry fans are passionate. We've been starved of success, and I think this season we're really letting out our emotions. I think the Coventry fans have been a step above this season. We're going in elite. Next up are Reading, and I've said before I have nothing against them as a club, but as a fan base, for the Championship, it's very disappointing. For that reason, I'm going to slide Reading in meh. I am looking forward to going to the Medeski later this season, but when they came to Coventry, I didn't really rate their away fans. Next up are Luton Town, and in my opinion, they are going in great. Luton Town's fans are sensational. You think of the journey they've been on. When you think to yourselves, a club from the National League has got to the Championship within 6 or 7 seasons, you'd think their fans are struggling to keep up with the level of football they're now playing with. But no, Luton Town's fans are at least Championship level. They're fantastic at home. It's not a massive ground, but they always get good numbers, a good atmosphere. And on the road as well, Luton Town are really getting a good reputation for themselves. Luton Town are a real inspiration and role model to the National League and League Two clubs that want to get up to the Championship and sustain themselves. Luton Town are a fantastic club, fantastic fans. Next up are Middlesbrough. They have to go in one of the top 2 tiers for me. Middlesbrough fans go on a massive journey every time they go on an away day. And at the Riverside, they can get good numbers as well and make good noise. Ooh, this is tricky. Just to balance it out a little bit, I'm going to put Middlesbrough in great. I think they could easily go in elite. Any Middlesbrough fans watching, let me know what you think. Next up are Nottingham Forest. I'm going to slide Forest into the elite tier. I think Forest have got some really, really decent fans. You think to yourselves, they always take good numbers on the road. They always get good numbers at home. They always make good noise as well. Forest are just a really, really good club with really, really good fans. Next up, Huddersfield Town. I haven't seen a lot of them to make a very good judgment, so I will concede if you guys say that I've put them in the wrong place. I'm going to slide Huddersfield Town in solid. I don't think they're bad fans, but in terms of numbers, I don't know a lot about Huddersfield Town. Once again, any Huddersfield fans watching, let me know what you think. Next up, PNE, Preston North End. One thing about Preston, which is quite interesting, is they might not always bring the biggest allocation, but they can make good noise. So say they only bring 1,000 away fans, they'll make as much noise as 2,000 away fans. That's one thing I have noticed with Preston North End. They've got some loyal fans, some loud fans. I'm going to put Preston in solid. Any Preston fans watching, do you agree with that? Next up, Queen's Park Rangers. This is a tricky one. I like QPR as a club. I think they've got some decent fans, to be fair. I'm going to put them in solid. I've got quite a few clubs in solid now. Any QPR fans watching, what do you think? I know there are some passionate QPR fans. Whenever they've come to Coventry, I've thought they've been pretty decent, to be fair. So let me know what you think down below. Next up are Rotherham United, and I really like their ground. I think they get good numbers at home. Whenever they've come away to Coventry, they've not been bad. I think they're just sort of a steady Yorkshire club with some steady Yorkshire fans, if you get what I mean. I think they're kind of underrated, actually. I'm going to slide them into underrated. Any Rotherham fans out there? Let me know what you think. Next up are Stoke City. I think Stoke City have got some really good fans. I'm going to just sneak them into great. Any Stoke fans watching, let me know what you think down below. I think they've always had a good reputation for good home numbers, a good home atmosphere. You know what they used to say about going away to Stoke and winning on a cold Tuesday night. So they've obviously got a good reputation. And I think on the road as well, they're not bad fans. Let me know what you think down below. Next up, Hartlepool United. Obviously, they've only just come up from the National League, but I've always thought Hartlepool United have some decent fans. And once again, there's not many local away days for the Hartlepool fans. I'm going to put Hartlepool in underrated. I've always liked Hartlepool as a club, and I think their fans are actually massively underrated. Next up, Accrington Stanley. Who are they? I'm sorry, Accrington. I'm going to put you in poor. Love them as a club. What they've done as a club is sensational. Once again, if we're talking about role models, they are a role model to National League clubs that want to stabilise themselves in the Football League. But we're talking fan bases here. I'm sorry, Accrington. Not a massive fan base. Next up, AFC Wimbledon. Tricky one. I'm going to slide them in underrated. Haven't been away to Wimbledon. Obviously, they've got a new ground now as well. Whenever they've come to Coventry, they've not made bad noise or brought bad numbers, but not great noise, not great numbers. So kind of like middle of the range for League One, which I'm sure they'll be happy with when you consider they had to start their club again. I'll put them in underrated. Next up are AFC Bournemouth. I like them as a club, as a fan base. They come in for a bit of criticism, especially when they're in the Premier League. Look, it's not a massive ground. They're not a massive club for the Premier League. And even for the Championship, you can make an argument they're not that big of a club. But they're not as bad as people try and make out. I think they can get good numbers. At home, they do usually sell out, don't they? And away from home, They're not that bad, to be honest, in the Championship. I'll put them in underrated for that reason. Any Bournemouth fans watching? What do you think? Next up are Bolton Wanderers. I've said before, they are fantastic fans. And in League One this season, they've not been bad, have they? I'm going to slide Bolton Wanderers into great. You think of what the Bolton fans have been through. I've said it before. They're sensational. They went all the way down to League Two. And remember that season in League One when they were playing their kids and losing 5-0, 6-0, week in, week out. They were taking thousands on the road. So you could make an argument to say Bolton should be in elite. But I'm going to put them in great. Next up are Bradford City, and for League Two, you've got to say they are sensational. We're comparing them to the other 72 clubs here, and I'd still say they're solid. Bradford have always had good numbers at home. They're a pretty big city, I suppose, but for League Two, they still get some massive amount of fans at home. And on the road, Bradford aren't bad as well, so I'm going to put them in solid. Next up, Carlisle United. Let's put them in underrated. Once again, Carlisle United, not exactly many local away days to them. So everything's a bit of a mission. Carlisle fans, they can bring a few hundred. At home, they can get some good numbers and make some good noise as well. So let's put them in underrated. Next up are Charlton Athletic. I've been to the Valley before. I love the stadium. The fans they get in there are good. They're passionate. They don't usually sell out, but fair enough. They're in League One and it's a massive stadium. On the road, not bad. They're just a solid London club and probably too big for League One, but I'll put them in solid. Next up are Crawley Town. I'm sorry, Crawley fans, I'm going to slide you into poor. Whenever Crawley have come to Coventry, they haven't brought great numbers. Okay, it's not that local and they're not that big of a club. You've got to give them applause for the fans that do go, the fans that do try and make numbers, but they're just not a massive club, so they're going to fall behind here. Next up, Derby County. I don't think too many people would disagree with me putting Derby in elite. Fantastic fan base, home and away, always make good noise, can make a bit of trouble. We saw that when they came to Coventry this season. I think both fans were giving it a bit, weren't they? But yeah, Derby County, massive club, massive fan base. And obviously with what they've gone through this season, you've got to say fair play to the Derby fans. They're still going, knowing that their club are probably going down to League One this season. Next up, Doncaster Rovers. Doncaster Rovers. It's a tricky one. I'll probably just put them in underrated. They're not that bad of a club. I think Doncaster, for me, are kind of middle of the range for League One. I remember they were in the Championship a few years ago, but in terms of a fan base, they take okay numbers on the road. They can get decent enough numbers at the Keep Moat. Can make some good noise, so we'll put them in underrated, I suppose. Next up, Fulham Football Club. You've got to say they're a good club. They've got good players. They probably will be going back to the Premier League this season. I've said before, I don't like the clappers that they have at Craven Cottage. For me, that's Tin Pot. They don't bring the biggest numbers on the road, but still take into account the numbers that they do get at home and the fans that do go away. You've got to give them respect. I'll be nice. I'll put Fulham in solid. I know some of you guys might disagree. Let me know what you think down below. Next up are Harrogate Town. I don't know a lot about Harrogate, to be honest. I don't think I've actually seen their fans. They might be one of the only clubs in here whose fans I haven't seen before. I'll put them in meh. I think Harrogate as a club, they're doing well for themselves, so I'll put them in meh. Why not? Next up, Leyton Orient. I do like Leyton Orient. I'm going to put them in solid. I've got a lot of respect for clubs that have been through a lot. Leyton Orient are a club that have been through a lot. Remember, they were on the verge of getting promoted to the Championship and then instead went all the way down to the National League. Obviously, they've had problems off the pitch. They had a great manager in Justin Edinburgh who sadly passed away as well. So there's been a real rough few years at Leyton Orient. But as a club, it'd be great to see them on their way back to at least League One. And fan base-wise, good at home, good away, good London club in my opinion. Next up, Lincoln City. Might surprise a few of you. I'm going to sneak Lincoln all the way into great. I think their fans are sensational. They always do get good numbers at home, make a good atmosphere at home as well. And on the road, whenever they've come to Coventry, good numbers. When you think of the journey they've been on, they were National League a few years ago. That FA Cup run, I remember that win at Burnley when they took thousands away to Burnley. That for me was like Lincoln are on the up, and I really like them as a fan base as well. They're going in great. Next up are MK Dons. I know a lot of people love to hate on MK Dons, and I think at home you've got to say the stadium is too big for them. I think MK Dons fans will admit that as well. They're trying to grow as a club, obviously. They've only been going for 16, 17 years. Obviously their beginning was very controversial, and that's why quite a few people don't like them. I think for the MK Dons fans that do go on the road, you've got to give them a lot of respect. You've got to think they have to put up with being called franchise and things like that. And if you live in Milton Keynes, you want to support your local club, you can't help where the club came from. It's a tricky one. I think they're trying to grow, so I won't put them in poor, but I'll put them in meh. Any MK Dons fans watching, what do you think about what I've said? Next up, Morecambe FC, obviously newly promoted to League One, came up through the League Two playoffs last season. As a fan base, they're not massive, are they? But one thing I do remember, and this is why I'm not going to put them in poor, is on the final day of the League Two season 17-18, when Coventry and Morecambe were playing. I remember it was a pretty decent atmosphere because Morecambe needed a draw to stay up, Coventry needed a draw to get into the playoffs, and I think they brought about 900, 1,000 fans. So for that reason, I can't say poor. I'm going to put Morecambe in meh. I quite like Morecambe as a club. Next up are Barrow. I'm sorry, Barrow fans. I'm going to put you in poor. Not a massive club, to be fair. I think like most football clubs, they do have a few fans that are loyal, and I love that. But in terms of numbers, not massive numbers on the road. So I'm going to put Barrow in poor. Next up, Newport County. Do you know what? When they came to Coventry when we were in League Two, they actually brought a fair few. And I like their ground as well. It's quite an interesting ground. Underrated in my opinion. I think for some fans that support Championship and Premier League clubs that don't often get to see the League Two fans, you won't appreciate how good some of them are. I think Newport are underrated. I'm also going to put Northampton Town in underrated. I've always thought Northampton Town have a solid core fan base. I remember they came to Coventry at the start of the season in the League Cup and they actually beat us. They brought 1,000, which isn't actually that bad for a League Cup game in midweek, the first round. No one really takes it that seriously. And whenever I've been to Sixfields as well, they always get good numbers there. I've got a lot of time for Northampton. I'm going to put them in underrated. I'm also going to put Oldham Athletic in underrated. Oldham Athletic are a club that are massively underrated in my opinion, the fans at least. They've always had decent fans. I remember in the FA Cup a few years ago when they went away to Fulham, I think they took about 4,000 or 5,000 and they were singing and they won that game. It was mental that. And obviously there's been protests this season. It's not looking great at Oldham, but they always have good fans. I think Oldham are a traditional club for me that deserve to be in the Football League. It'd be a shame to see them get relegated. Next up, Rochdale. Rochdale. I'm sorry, Rochdale. I'm going to put you in meh. Any Rochdale fans watching, what do you think of that? Whenever they come to Coventry, they haven't been amazing. Their ground, Spotland, is okay, but I'm going to put them in meh. Next up are Salford City. I think a few people don't like them because of the investment that they've had from the class of '92. But they are growing as a fan base, and I've seen them away at Solihull Moors. Well, that was in the National League. They had good numbers then. Obviously, they're in League Two now. I think their fan base is growing. So for that reason, although some people might not like me saying it, you've got to maybe say underrated for them. Next up are Sheffield United. This is a traditional football club, and as much as people won't like me saying it, as much as it's controversial, I do like both Sheffield clubs. I'm going to put them both in elite. Sheffield United, good fans at home and on the road. I've been away to Bramall Lane a few times. I went a couple of weeks ago. Wasn't the best atmosphere, but once again, that was a 0-0 draw, so I can understand. They've always got good numbers, though. They can make good noise when it's an interesting game, I suppose. And yeah, good reputation for me. I like Sheffield United. Next up are Shrewsbury Town. I'll put Shrewsbury in meh. Not the worst fans for League One, to be fair. Shrewsbury have always had okay numbers, okay atmosphere, but they're not going to set the world on fire, are they? I'll put Shrewsbury in meh. Next up are Stevenage. I've seen them at home and on the road. I'm sorry, Stevenage. I'm going to put you in poor. They have some loyal fans. I'll grant them that. They will make a bit of noise, but ultimately they're not a massive fan base, and I'm going to put them in poor for that reason. Next up are Sutton United. I don't know an awful lot about Sutton United. I know they obviously dumped Coventry out of the FA Cup in 1989. One of the greatest FA Cup upsets of all time. Obviously, they've done well to get into League Two. I respect them for that, but we're comparing them to the rest of the 72 clubs in the Football League here, and for that reason, I'm sorry, Sutton United. I'm going to put you in poor. Any Sutton fans watching though, what do you think of that? Next up are Swansea City. Not a bad fan base. You've got to take into account Swansea City is not local to many places as well. Obviously, Cardiff's their nearest ground, and other than that, it's a bit of a journey for the Swansea fans. They'll always try and take good numbers and make good noise. I respect the loyal fans that go on the road to all these away days and clock up the miles. At home, they have good numbers as well and can make good noise. I'm going to put Swansea in solid. Solid Championship club for me. Next up, Wycombe Wanderers. I like Wycombe Wanderers, and to be honest, it's a real shame that they didn't stay up in the Championship because I like an underdog. I think their fans are underrated in my opinion. Whenever they've come to Coventry, they've had okay numbers, make okay noise. So yeah, some people don't appreciate Wycombe Wanderers. I think they're underrated. Last up, West Bromwich Albion, and these are the most recent fans I've seen at the time of recording this because they've just come to Coventry, brought over 4,000, made good noise all the way through. Some of the best fans I've seen this season. I've been to the Hawthorns a few times as well. I've always enjoyed my experience there. West Bromwich Albion have to go in elite. Fantastic fans. There you go then. That wraps up today's video. We've got through all of the 72 football clubs in the EFL this season. Let me know if you agree or disagree down below. Remember, it is just a matter of opinions. So if you disagree, get your comments down below. That's absolutely fine. If you've enjoyed this video, please make sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new around here, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace out.